In my speech, I would like to speak in details while we consider inefficiency of the existing systems of European security. First of all, I would like to speak about NATO as a source of military threat for the Russian Federation. I will remind that main purpose for creation of North Atlantic Alliance in 1949 was prevention of spreading communism in Europe. But in 1991, the USSR ceased to exist and then disintegrated the Warsaw Agreement, which was made in counterbalance to NATO. New Russia have taken course in comprehensive rapprochement with the West. Management of the country went to unprecedented concession, including complete ending Russian presence in territory of Baltic states, Germany, Poland, then handing over of military objection to national jurisdiction, which was perceived finally as manifestation of our weakness. At the same time, the United States started positioning itself as the only superpower in the world and simply considered unnecessary to take into account vital interests of Russia. Our country has been considered and continue to be considered by Washington as the source of cheap resources, which will be very desirable to establish American control. And implementation of this plan by the Washington during next decades has been purposefully conducted and continued to be conducted to weakening Russia, decreasing influence on the post-Soviet space and at the international level. In strategical plan, widening of NATO maximally brought its military infrastructure to Russian borders. At the same time, in case of appearing of military conflict and strike of the air means of delivery, we will have critically important facilities in practically all European territory of Russia. At the same time, rapprochement time will decrease 2 times. We consider that for these purposes, starting from 2008, NATO standards were taken for several Baltic states, Romania, Poland, and Bulgaria. At the same time, it is created long-term basis to military equipment storage and military equipment. This allows not only allows quick deployment in case of further crisis near our borders, but also expediting further creation of grouping of troops on account of decreasing time for transition of forces from US and Great Britain. Besides, an agreement has been signed with Finland and Sweden about support of a receiving country, which in practice legitimizes possibility of presence of NATO contingent on territories of these countries and using their infrastructure for using a transition of coalition forces into North Europe. Regarding military potential, despite the disintegration of NATO agreement planned and besides in the framework of bilateral cooperation, U.S. plan to improve equipment of Eastern European satellites, equipping them with air-based cruise missiles of long distance, JASSM EEP, which allows defeating targets on Russian territory without coming into the range of our means of air defense. And United States refusing to take part in the dialogue on anti-missile defense continue confirming us that the deployment of this facility has no danger for the Russian Federation. At the same time, our fear is not taken into account that such complexes in future may be fitted with and modernized counter missiles standard 3, which allows interception of Russian ballistic missiles. Besides, sets of vertical launch of counter rockets may be used for launching cruise missile Tomahawk. And after starting of Ukrainian crisis, activity of NATO had acquired anti-Russian character. And slogan of Russian expansion, management of NATO continue increasing Russian military presence at our borders. At present, on territory of the countries of Eastern Europe, we see permanent rotational presence up to 30 military aircraft of NATO countries, not less than 300 units of armored vehicles, and more than 1,500 people of Marines and land forces. In the aquatic area of the Black Sea, you practically see permanently naval vessels of the U.S. Intensity of flight of reconnaissance aviation increased 2 times as compared to 2013. Besides, starting from January 2015, we see regular flights of American strategical unmanned vehicles over territory of Black Sea, and starting from March 2015 in airspace of Ukraine. In 2014, intensity of measures of operational combat readiness increased by 80%. At the same time, the fact from May and June 2014, the large-scale maneuvers Saber Strike and Baltops took place in close proximity to Russian boundaries on territory of Baltic, Poland, and the management of NATO did not conceal a clear anti-Russian directness of such measures. During this time, in grouping of NATO forces counted more than 10,000 men, approximately 1,500 units of military aircraft, up to 80 aircraft, and approximately 50 naval vessels, and strategical bombers of the UNS acting from airfields in Great Britain were involved. It is necessary to stress also including capability to involve military strikes to increase readiness for reaction. In 2016, it is planned to increase standby forces of quick reaction force up to 30,000 and create on their basis inter-specific formation of quick reaction, counting 5,000 people to be deployed from 2 to 7 days. A decision has been taken to create 6 forward command centers of NATO on territory of Baltic states, Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania. Such examples may be continued further. And in general, analyzing character and directness, the following consequences can be made. First of all, using efforts of Washington, NATO is converted into a tool called to restrain Russian Federation and preserving global domination of U.S. Secondly, a rapprochement of infrastructure of NATO to Russian borders will provide the quick deployment of striking forces, will decrease time of their arrival, and in perspective will allow providing active counteraction to restrain actions of Russia. For this, Russia may not remain indifferent to increase of military presence, and we are forced to take countermeasures. I consider that it would be good for NATO, more purposeful, not to deal with self-frightening and of new countries, not to promote armed forces to our boundaries, but to deal with more important threats available in our dynamic world, which were mentioned earlier. And in conclusion, I would like to quote speech of the Russian president. It doesn't mean that Russia is striving to renewal of military standoff with the West or threatens anybody. We would not allow anybody to talk to us using language of force, and we will consecutively defend our national interests with all available means with us. Thank you.